Now, a special presentation from WBNS 10 TV and the Columbus Dispatch. This is the Columbus Mayoral Debate. Live from the WBNS 10 TV studio in Columbus, here's your moderator, 10 TV News anchor, Jerry Revish.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Columbus Mayoral Debates. In 2 weeks, voters will go to the polls on November 3rd to decide who will become the next mayor of Columbus. This evening, you'll hear from the two candidates on the ballot next month. Let's meet the candidates in tonight's debate. Andrew Ginther is a Democrat. He is the current president of Columbus City Council. Ginther is also a former board member for Columbus City Schools. Zack Scott is a Democrat. He is the current Franklin County Sheriff. He was appointed in 2011 and elected in 2012. He's been a member of local law enforcement for 30 years. And now let's introduce our two panelists. Scott Light is the 10 TV News political anchor and host of Face the State. Lucas Sullivan is the City Hall reporter for the Columbus Dispatch. Now, each campaign has agreed upon the rules and regulations set up for this debate. We'll begin this evening with 2-minute opening statements. Candidates will then each have a 1-minute opening rebuttal. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer questions, 90 seconds to respond, and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Panelists will have the option of follow-up questions to which each candidate will have 30 seconds to respond. Questions will alternate between the two candidates. Toward the end of the hour, each candidate will be permitted a 2-minute closing statement. It's time now to begin with opening statements. A coin toss has determined the order for this debate, and Mr. Ginther will go first. Sir?
Thank you, Jerry, and those who are joining us here at home tonight to hear a little bit about our vision for Columbus's future. Columbus is a pretty special place. One of the fastest growing economies in the Midwest, lowest unemployment in decades, a AAA bond rating from all three rating agencies, and the greatest wage growth of any major city in the country. But we know that not every family in every neighborhood is sharing in our success. And so I believe that a top priority as mayor will be building on the great foundation we formed under the leadership of Mayor Coleman, but making sure that Linden and the Hilltop and other critical neighborhoods in our city are benefiting the same way that other neighborhoods under these partnerships, these public-private partnerships that make us so unique, have benefited as well. When you look at what's taken place in neighborhoods like American Addition and Wyland Park and Franklinton, you can't help but wonder the excitement taking place in Marion Franklin, where I was just today celebrating the new Marion Franklin Opportunity Center. Our best days as a city are still ahead of us, but it's going to require us to invest in our youngest citizens. And that's why I continue to be focused on reducing our infant mortality rates, investing in high quality learning opportunities for our youngest citizens, expanding after-school programs and summer learning opportunities for our children. At the same time, we focus on workforce development and employment and economic development for their parents. But because we know that family stability is critically important to stronger neighborhoods, and our neighborhoods make us the great city that we are. So I appreciate you tuning in tonight and ask you to follow our thoughts and ideas and vision for the future as you make important decisions in the weeks ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Scott, your turn.
Thanks for joining us from home tonight and here in the studio audience. And thank you, Channel 10, for sponsoring this forum. My name's Zack Scott, and I've lived in the Columbus area for around 44 years. I have earliest memories of living over off Franklin Park, at one point Hilltop, Parsons Avenue and Markeson, to Southern Pines, to location off of Hamilton Road at one point. I have a pretty good understanding of our communities and our neighborhoods. I then went into law enforcement, and I worked as a law enforcement officer in and out of these different locations all over Columbus and the suburbs. And having a good understanding of our different communities, I've seen that we have what I would call the tale of two cities. We have a lot of successes, but we also have a lot of challenges ahead of us. When it comes to businesses that are downtown, we have some great businesses. We have a vibrant downtown. We have the Children's Hospitals, it's known nationally. We have one of the best police forces in the country. We have many great events and programs that the City of Columbus offers. Now, when it comes to our challenges, Mr. Ginther does cite some of the statistics, but unfortunately all those statistics center around the Columbus region, which is around 11 different counties. I'm running for the mayor of Columbus, and our challenges center around poverty, which is 22% and 17% working poor, and that number is going up by tripling by the rate of our population growth. We have homelessness that's on the rise, and we have third highest in income tax rate in the country. So we have some challenges, and I believe we need someone who has CEO experience, someone who has handled and managed large budgets and handled and managed large amount of employees. And I'm the only one in this race that actually has CEO experience. My opponent does vote on budgets, and I think he has 3 assistants, but I look forward to sharing my ideas with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ginther, your turn for an opening rebuttal. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. You know, really tonight isn't about me. It isn't about my opponent. It's about you and your family. What are the things that you're facing in your neighborhood? And what are things that the next mayor and city government can work together with you to improve the life and the quality of life in your neighborhood? So I look forward to the discussion tonight, and I ask you to join us at andrewginther.com to continue the conversation and figure out ways that you can be involved in shaping the future of our great city. Friends, for the first time in 16 years, there will be a new mayor in the mayor's office in January. And it is time for us as a community, as a city, to come together to write the next chapter in the story that is Columbus. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and look forward to the conversation.
Mr. Scott, your opening rebuttal.
My platform is about jobs, education, safety, and stronger neighborhoods. I actually have a real plan to address our challenges and to continue to build on our successes. My opponent has been a city elected official for 15 years. I feel that if he actually had plans in place, we wouldn't have some of the challenges that we're facing today. Unfortunately, my opponent continues to add to some of our challenges. We have been inundated with issues of corruption, scandals, and ethics violations. And unfortunately, Mr. Ginther stands around and says he has no idea what's going on. This needs to stop. This is going to hurt our future for success. And I think the first thing that we have to do is start restoring voter confidence, citizens' confidence, city employee confidence. So my goal is to make sure that we clean house, get rid of that foul, corrupt odor that's down around City Hall, and make sure we restore the confidence that our city residents deserve.
Thank you. Now time to begin the question portion of this debate, and the first question comes from 10 TV's Scott Light for Mr. Ginther.
Mr. Ginther, you took a trip to an Ohio State football game with a lobbyist who has since pled guilty to extortion and is at the center of a bribery investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice. This very same lobbyist represented numerous clients who did business with our city and got lucrative contracts funded by taxpayers. The question is, should voters trust you?
Well, I appreciate the question, Scott, and it's very important to look at the facts. And I would encourage, with all the rumors, lies, and innuendos and false charges by my opponent, it's important to check out the facts and the public records themselves. And so I encourage people to go to andrewginther.com to do that themselves. The bottom line is I paid for the trip and reported that in the campaign finance reports that took place later that year. And we have always, throughout my public career, obeyed the law and followed the ethics advisory opinions issued by the Ohio Ethics Commission. So I feel very confident that we did as we were supposed to do and always have. And it's very important to me that the people of Columbus know that we've been transparent and we've been open in every way, shape, or form regarding this trip and any of the other allegations and false reports that have been put out there this summer. One of the things that's really important to me is transparency and disclosure. And so as the leader of council, we've put in place additional tougher ethics laws, some of the toughest in the state, and we're now actually considering additional disclosure around both gifts and campaign finance disclosure and reports. I trust the people of Columbus, and I believe that by giving them more information, they will make decisions in the best interests of the people of Columbus moving forward.
Mr. Scott, your response.
Well, I find it interesting that Mr. Ginther come out and exonerated himself. And in 30 years of law enforcement, I've never seen the FBI come out and change one of their press releases and say no one has been exonerated and that this investigation is ongoing. I find it interesting that the Columbus Dispatch said that even the dullest politician should have realized this was not a good decision to make going with this lobbyist. We're talking about transparency issues. I think City Council, which Mr. Ginther was one of the first ones to make sure he led the charge on making sure that they didn't have to disclose as much, that they could actually make decisions at City Council behind closed doors and actually leave the public out of that situations. And we're talking about ethics. I came out a couple weeks before this situation with the ethics, with my ethics reform and policies, which cuts out the lobbyists. It brings in ethics training. It makes sure that we have an ethics officer involved in the day-to-day decisions. Mr. Ginther's ethics policy still allows him to make sure that he can take trips with lobbyists, that he can take gifts from lobbyists, that he can spend time with lobbyists. He just has to report it now. And I find it very interesting that Mr. Ginther continues to say that, oh, I did nothing wrong. Everything is fine. I paid my fair share. As he sits beside me right now, he is the target of an ethics investigation by the state of Ohio.
Mr. Ginther, your rebuttal.
Let's be very clear. After a summer of lies, rumors, and innuendos, the facts speak for themselves. And that is, I told the voters back in June that wasn't the subject of any investigation, wasn't a person of interest. And that those facts played out for themselves with the plea agreement that was reached between the federal government and Mr. Rayfield. What's important for us to focus on is the fact that we have to be open, transparent, and clear with the public when these issues come up.
Mr. Ginther, you're out of time on this. Scott Light, you have a follow-up?
Quick one. You said you've been transparent, open, and followed ethics guidelines regarding this trip. If you had to do it all over again, would you take this very same trip with that same lobbyist?
Well, as I've shared with you and have shared before, we paid for the trip. We didn't accept a gift. And based on the law and ethics opinion advisories, I've always complied with the law and followed the ethics opinion advisories from my 15 years as a candidate and office holder in this community. And I think it's really important. I think to suggest somehow or another that me paying for the trip or the gifts that the sheriff accepted for haircuts or cigars are going to make our ability to do our jobs inappropriate, or that we would lead us down the path, then I think is an unfair characterization.
Would you take the trip, yes or no?
I would pay the full amount of the trip as required by law and disclose it appropriately, just as we did.
Second question comes from Scott Light for Mr. Scott.
Mr. Scott, you've talked about trust in your ads, and you've also thrown jabs at your opponent about his dealings with lobbyists and accepting gifts. But last year, you've accepted the second most gifts of anyone running for city office this year. And now that you're running for mayor, you want to ban them completely. So the same question goes to you. Should voters trust you?
Absolutely. When you get elected as a sheriff, you go to an ethics training. It's required by the state of Ohio. And when you go to this training, it tells you to over-disclose, over-report. So if someone handed me anything, I put it on there. It's supposed to be over $75, but I didn't care. I put anything that was on there that someone gave me, any type of gift, I put it on there to disclose it fully. Now, the difference between my gifts and Mr. Ginther's is none of these were vendors. They weren't lobbyists. They weren't contracting with me to do anything. They couldn't influence me to do anything. He was taking gifts from someone who actually was influencing him, getting money. $20,000 actually is what he ended up getting, but actually it's more like $77,000 if you look at all the money that Mr. Rayfield gave him. So as far as me taking from friends, people I know, yeah, I over-report. They tell you to over-report. I make sure I follow the law. Yeah, I have no problem with making sure I disclose and I'm transparent. And my ethics say that when it comes to lobbyists, people who do regulation with the city of Columbus, is my ethics policy kind of extreme? It is kind of extreme. But when we have corruption investigations going on by the FBI and the DOJ, and we have ethics investigations going on, you have to take extreme measures. And that's why I put my policies in place.
Mr. Ginther, your response.
Well, we've been very clear about this from the beginning. There wasn't a gift accepted because I paid for the trip and disclosed it in the appropriate ways. As the sheriff knows, it's illegal to accept gifts from folks who want to do business or have business before us as an elected body. So again, we just need to pay attention to the facts and check out the facts for yourselves. I know it's campaign silly season, and a person who lost a primary by 34 points and is currently losing by 20 points is in a desperate state of his campaign. And so I trust the people of Columbus to look at the facts and make their own decisions, because the people of Columbus know what's in the best interest for them, their family, and their neighborhood moving forward.
Mr. Scott, your rebuttal.
Well, yeah, I would challenge that Mr. Ginther has said I'm losing by 20 points. I would love to see a pollster actually put his name on that instead of Mr. Ginther always putting it on his Facebook for his actual facts. Again, Mr. Ginther can stand here or sit here and continue to say I did nothing wrong as the ethics investigation continues to swell around him.